right, well, I think we'll get started then. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the fourth episode in our webinar series, where we speak to other experts about communication that matters. And today we are talking all about LinkedIn. I'm Nicole Schultz from Cefiani Communications Group, and I am so pleased to be joined today by one of our agency partners, Lucy Bingle. Lucy is a LinkedIn marketing strategist. She provides LinkedIn consulting services and training to companies across the country. She has more than 20 years marketing experience and is incredibly passionate about helping individuals and companies to build brand awareness and thought leadership through LinkedIn. Thank you so much for being with us today, Lucy.
That's okay. Thank you for having me.
So we know that to achieve results in LinkedIn, it's really important that you have a robust strategy in place and that you get all of the fundamentals right. And that is exactly what Lucy and I are going to focus on in our discussion today. What we really hope that you'll get out of this session is very practical advice and tips that you can implement straight away to help you achieve even greater organic impact through your LinkedIn activities. And there will be time for questions at the end as well. So please don't hold back. If anything comes to mind throughout the discussion, pop your question in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen and we'll get to those a little bit later on. So to start with, Lucy, I would love to hear your perspective on why LinkedIn has become such an important marketing channel and why therefore people probably need to start thinking perhaps a little bit more seriously and strategically about their approach to an investment in the LinkedIn platform.
Great, thank you. I think the reason LinkedIn is such a business critical tool now for businesses is that ultimately it is the largest online professional platform globally. So that's the first reason. There's over 690 million users and there's over 50 million companies represented on the platform. It's got no competition in that space, and it's really, especially in a time of COVID, it's such an opportunity to be able to share insight, knowledge, company culture, business announcements, and news about your business, your services, your products, etc. And given that you have all these professionals sitting on this platform, it's such an opportunity to be able to share that knowledge and get in front of your target audience. I mean, ultimately you can get your people, your brand and your target audience all to connect, and that's really powerful.
Yeah, it really is such a unique platform and what it can offer. So I guess a really good starting point for us then when I mentioned before about getting the fundamentals right, and this is often something that I think is overlooked, and that is to ensure you have a really powerful personal profile. So what can we all do, Lucy, to make sure that our personal profiles are best in class?
Yes. Okay, so you'll hear me often say three words, which are personalised, optimised, socialised. But the first part is the optimised. So in terms of what do you need to do, first off, you need to go and review your LinkedIn profile page. You need to make sure that it's best in class. And some of the quick ways that you can do that is making sure that you've got a professional headshot, that you've got a vibrant and dynamic background image, that you've completed your summary section or your about me section where you're really talking to the challenges that you solve for clients. So changing your mindset from looking at your LinkedIn profile page as an online CV and thinking of it more as a capability statement. So really talking about what you do, who you serve, how you help, and then attaching rich media files to that profile page to again demonstrate that you're expert, and remembering that, you know, especially now, this is how people are finding you. You know, your LinkedIn profile page is ultimately the first touch point that many people will have about you or your business. So that is the absolute reason that everybody in a business should have a best-in-class LinkedIn profile page, because when you Google me, Lucy Bingle, it's not actually my website, which is lucybingle.com, that appears first. It's my LinkedIn profile page, and that would be the same for everybody on this webinar. So that's why you've got to go and make sure your people are set up for success on the platform and have an optimized profile page.
Yeah, it really is that opportunity to sort of tell and sell your story as opposed to just having a list of your work experience there, so that when people look at your profile, they think, wow, I really need to have this person as a part of my business.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's an individual profile. What about company pages? What should organizations be doing to make sure that when people come to visit their company page, that is really dynamic and engaging?
Yes, so the way I explain a company page is that it's effectively a microsite of your website. So again, a visitor to a company page should really get a very quick understanding about your service offering, your company culture, the people and talent that you have within an organization, and your expertise and insight in your industry. So on that page, as you said, it needs to be dynamic, so it also needs to be vibrant, and it needs to be a mix of content. So I want to hear people story, brand stories, but I also want to hear expert knowledge, insight, and then also your corporate social responsibility activities. So if you're doing stuff within the community, or if you're doing, other activities that should be celebrated and recognised.
Yeah, I think the point about the importance of humanizing your brand is really important, because whether your aim is to recruit amazing talent to your organization or to attract new business leads, it's really important to show that human side and your company cultures and the great things that you're doing to the amongst the community, because people want to get a sense of what it would be like to work with you or for you. And so those aspects of your organization are really important. And LinkedIn is the perfect ideal platform to be able to communicate that.
Yeah, completely. And that's why, LinkedIn marketing is as much about marketing your business to potential clients and reaffirming to your existing clients, but it's also about attracting talent and retaining talent, So it's actually a multi-pronged strategy, and you've got to always be mindful of that, you're touching people in all different ways and for all different reasons.
Yeah. So now that we all have an amazing profile, or will do by the end of today, thanks to your advice, let's talk a little bit about growing your LinkedIn network. Of course, having meaningful connections is more important than sort of just looking at volume alone. So how can you strategically grow a valuable LinkedIn network?
Yes, so this is the second part. So before, when I said about optimize, personalize and socialize, for me, this is the personalized component. So I always recommend having a personalized connection strategy from an individual perspective. So identifying who you need to get into your bucket. So who are those customers and those prospects that you need to be reaching out to, but also thinking a bit further or a bit broader. So thinking about industry leaders, influencers of key decision makers. So thinking about industry leaders, clients, prospects, and key influencers, and then personalizing that strategy. So when you actually find those people, making sure that you're sending personalized connection requests where you're being really authentic and friendly upfront about why you're connecting in with them. And to your point, I agree. I don't want you to do a scattergun approach, and I don't want you to go for volume. I want you to go for quality, because you want to add value to this network and you want them to add value to your network as well. So it's really important that you grow a valuable and meaningful network, as opposed to just going for the numbers game.
I really love your concept of a connections strategy, because we talk so much about content strategy, but really the two have such equal importance. You could have the most incredible content, but if the right people aren't seeing it, then it's really quite pointless. So it really is important to, I guess, give the same amount of energy and attention to both your connections and your content strategies.
Yes, I agree.
So when it comes to content then, and this is a big question, I'm sure there'll be a lot of elements to it, but what are your recommendations on, I suppose, the key techniques that people can apply to make sure that their content is really standing out from the crowd and achieving as greater engagement as possible?
Yeah, so I'm really passionate about quality content. So again, going back to similarly, I suppose, with the connection strategy, I would rather you find really quality content or curate great content and share that with smart commentary than just feel like you need to be present constantly. I'd rather you do less and did it really well than doing loads of content marketing. So we always recommend from an individual perspective that people are doing a mix. They're creating their own content that they're sharing and that's demonstrating their expertise and wrapping that in smart commentary. So that may be a LinkedIn article that you publish, which could also be a blog post that you've got on your website. So just repurposing content that a brand is already creating, but then also sourcing and curating high quality content from your industry or from your passion areas that you want to share with your network, and then wrapping that in smart commentary. And when you do your posts, making sure you're tagging individuals, publications, and that you're adding the right hashtags as well. And all those little pieces, if you do them well, will really amplify that post and get in front of the right people. And I think I mentioned, you know, to you before when we chatted prior to this call today, but you know, you only get an opportunity to get in front of 3 to 5% of your actual network when you actually publish a post, which most people don't realize. So therefore, again, that plays into making sure it's really quality and making sure that it counts. And LinkedIn has what they call a dwell algorithm. So again, if you are sharing a quality piece of content that's wrapped in smart commentary that allows a reader to pause and to actually want to take time to read your content or watch your video that you share, the algorithm plays to your advantage, because that demonstrates to LinkedIn that you are actually sharing quality content that people are interested in, and that will allow you to reappear, you know, more within their feeds, etc. So for me, it's really important that it's quality, that you've got something insightful to say. I want to see a mix of content. Video is really powerful. It's 6 times more consumed than the written words. So if you can incorporate that into your strategy, make sure you do. I think that's probably about it. And just the tagging and the hashtags. And I know this is a given, but I'm going to say it anyway. Make sure you proofread what you publish, because as you would know in your world, people are very quick to judge, and you can ruin your reputation in moments just by typos and grammar. So proofread everything that you publish on the platform.
When it comes to tagging and hashtagging, Lucy, because you mentioned how critical that is to try and maximise the reach, is there any tips you have on effective utilisation of hashtags and tagging? Anything that people should consider that will make that?
So a couple of good tips. So making sure you're tagging the authors of publications, you know, bringing them into the conversation, and key people within articles that are being referred to. So tagging those people, and also, as I said, tagging the publication. But when it comes to hashtags, do a search yourself in the search bar, like using the hashtag, to see how effective that hashtag is performing. Because obviously, if that comes up with more numbers, then that's going to be more powerful than a hashtag that's only got 4 or 5 followers. You know, you're wanting the ones that actually really are penetrating and getting traction. So that's also a little tip that you can do.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. So looking at what hashtags are trending and therefore going to attract more eyeballs.
Exactly.
That don't have as much reach. When you also talked about the only 3 to 5%, sadly, of your network being notified of your posts, I think that also does at least provide some perspective then on the performance of your content, knowing that like a smaller number of your connections are actually kind of have that content pushed out to them. What would be some recommendations then that you have for assessing the performance of what you're doing? Because it's obviously so important to do that throughout your LinkedIn approach, so that you are taking on board learnings and changing tact as you need to. What kind of...
So we always recommend running an analytics report, especially, and I mean, there are 2 things that we're talking about here. So at the moment, we're talking about individual performance. So you can do that on yourself. So you could actually each month go back through the posts that you've published and then start to really measure the metrics around that. So look at the impression rates, look at the you know, the comments, and then start to see if there's a trend in types of themes of posts that you're sharing. And I think that would be a worthwhile exercise to do. And definitely I mean, we're not talking about company pages right now, but I'm going to say it anyway. Definitely on your company page, you should be running an analytics report every 8 weeks on that page. And again, for the same reason. So you can see what works and also what doesn't work. So you can figure out where you need to put your energy in terms of content and what your audience wants to hear, and looking at impressions and click-throughs and the types of followers you have and their growth and where they're coming from, etc. So back to your point, I think the key point is to review the posts that you've put up, have a look at the numbers and figure out who the people are that's actually engaging and whether they are the right audience that you're looking at, and whether they're valuable people that you want to be getting your content in front of.
I think that's really good advice, and so important to be assessing the performance rather than just putting your plan together, pushing it out there and hoping for the best, but to just reassess how it is going, how it's tracking.
I think also the other thing to touch on there is that LinkedIn marketing is all about rhythm. If you don't have rhythm and consistency, it just falls flat every time. And again, getting back to that algorithm, LinkedIn favors you if you are active. It does not favor you if you're only going to, on an ad hoc basis, share content or even do anything on LinkedIn. So that's why you've got to put rhythm into it. And that's the hardest part of LinkedIn marketing for companies and for individuals. And so I always say, which again is not rocket science, but I do say, get it in your diary, 3-4 times a week, put in Outlook that you're going to do 15 to 20 minutes of LinkedIn marketing. And that is all my recommendation is. I always say to people, I'm not here to create a whole new day job for you. I'm here for you to leverage a platform that exists and gives you an opportunity to really push your brand, your purpose, and what you do in front of the right people. And if you can do that 3 to 4 times a week for 20 minutes, I guarantee you it pays dividends every time.
I think that's excellent advice, Lucy. I think actually you refer to it sometimes as LinkedIn for breakfast.
That is the program's name. That's exactly right. LinkedIn for breakfast. So,
because like you said, it just makes it part of your weekly schedule. And if you put it in your diary and treat that with the same respect as any other meeting, it means that you are carving out the time to do it. And it's a manageable way to approach it rather than it feeling like a much more overwhelming task.
Yeah.
And then that rhythm and consistency will be there that you said is so important.
And, people fall off the wagon all the time. I was talking to somebody yesterday and they're like, oh, I've been terrible the last few weeks and I haven't done anything. That's okay. Just get back on and start again, because it works. Like, it doesn't actually, it's not like once you've stopped and you've had a bad run, nothing will happen. You just get back on and you find that rhythm again and that consistency, and it will play in your favor.
And I'd love to ask you, Lucy, obviously you said frequency is important because LinkedIn will favour that if you are actively participating. But is there also a fine line between posting too often, or if your content is great, it doesn't matter? What would be your advice?
Yeah, look, nobody wants to be spammy, no one wants that reputation, and no one wants to be turned off. That's like, the worst thing that could possibly happen, where people deactivate you because you're being too annoying. So you're right, like you need to find that fine line. But that's where I think it's really important to remember to be quality and to remember to be insightful and interesting, and human as well, So, and that's why I probably err on the side of that 3 to 4 times a week. So in that LinkedIn for Breakfast program, I talk about, reaching out to 15 people a week to connect in with. What else do I say? I say, make sure that you engage with what's going on in your feed, so what your network is up to, and not just liking, actually commenting. Liking doesn't cut it anymore. We've all got social media fatigue. So if you can find your voice and actually put some commentary around people's posts, that makes a huge difference. And then once a week, my expectation is that individuals would source, curate, and craft some really smart commentary around a high quality piece of content and share that with their network. And that's it. If you did that, I guarantee you'd be better than the next guy, but also you're not going to be annoying and spammy and turned off. You'll just start to build yourself and be seen as a subject matter expert. And that is ultimately what we all want you to do.
I think another really great point that you made earlier was around how you can create a piece of content that perhaps is a post on LinkedIn. It's also a blog on your own website. That's advice that we give our clients as well, because we know resources are limited in many cases, and you want to make sure that everything you create is working really hard for you. So thinking about how you can slice and dice pieces of content to exist in different channels, to pitch ideas to media as well as through your own channels, is a really great way to make sure that the investment you put into this thought leadership platform and thinking and content is being stretched across as many different channels as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So the next topic that I want to talk to you about is one that I know we're both really passionate about, and that's the potential for your team, your employees, to really be your company's greatest advocates. And it's not just at the CEO level, it really is every individual within an organisation that has the power to help kind of build a really positive reputation for your brand. So what advice do you give to companies to help them to really mobilise their team to become those advocates, to share through their own LinkedIn network the company's culture and capabilities?
Yeah, so you're right. I am passionate about this. Your people are effectively your biggest fans. Nobody knows your business as well as your people do. So give them the tools and techniques to get out there and celebrate the successes of the business, share the expertise and the stories of the business. And so education, I think, is really important. I think making sure that your people know how to set themselves up for success on LinkedIn. So making sure they actually know how to optimize their profile pages, giving them permission to socialize on the platform, i.e. get behind the corporate strategy and that LinkedIn strategy, but also being able to engage with what their network's up to, because they are your brand advocates, and we know also, a couple of stats around this is that we know that an individual can reshare a company piece of content 24 times more effectively than a company itself can. So therefore, it's really powerful if you can get them set up, as I said, and give them the tools to do it really effectively. And also educate them on what the LinkedIn strategy is. So, what are you guys already doing? Where is the company page? How do you engage with that page and that content? What is best practice and what is allowed? So I think education's key, and then also giving them permission. And it has to be from the top down. So you need your leaders and your CEOs to be embracing that LinkedIn strategy as well, because if they get behind it and their people see them engaging with content, celebrating the successes of their people, talking about their talent, they then go, great, if they're able to do it, it's okay for me to also endorse, advocate, all that sort of good stuff.
Yeah, we are really fortunate at Sofiani to work with L'Oreal. The beauty company is one of our clients, and I think they really are such a great case study for doing this exceptionally well. Their internal corporate communications team manages their LinkedIn efforts, and they have such an engaged and active group of employees. And in talking to them about some of their learnings about what's been successful for them, it definitely resonates with all the advice you've given now, Lucy, just having all those right processes in place so that your team have the tools and the training and the encouragement that they need to get involved. But also what I thought was a really interesting point that they made was around the fact that whilst they give everyone what they need, it's absolutely not mandatory. It's something that's optional for people to participate in, and that's where I think that's really important, because the authenticity is obviously really critical in this working well for your organisation.
I think that's a really good point. And not everyone will jump on board, and that's actually okay, and others are more tentative, so they're a slow burn. So, let them just watch and see, and then often they will take up, the opportunity and do it themselves. But I like that. I like the fact that you're not pushing them down a hard line, and I think that you're absolutely right. It feels more authentic and genuine and nurturing.
Yeah. So over the last couple of months, we've obviously had our world turned upside down, and so many organisations have had to shift to a completely new virtual way of operating. We've sadly also seen so many people in unemployment now and using LinkedIn to lean on their network for support in finding new opportunities. What have been some of the key trends that you've noticed in the LinkedIn environment over the last few months, and what opportunities do they potentially present for everyone listening today?
Yeah, so LinkedIn usage has had an uptake of 26% in the last quarter. So of course that is as much job seekers as well as everyone working from home and spending more time online. So there's a combination of things going on there. Where the opportunity sits, I believe, is that given more eyeballs are on the platform, if organisations put into play, develop and implement a great LinkedIn strategy that shares their content, insights, announcements, all that sort of stuff, they've got an opportunity to interrupt people's feeds and get in front of the right key decision makers. Also, the other opportunity that I'm seeing at the moment is that advertising on LinkedIn is down, so therefore there isn't as much advertising there. So if companies out there do have a spend available, I would be really strongly encouraging them to think about doing LinkedIn advertising, because I think given that there are more eyeballs on the platform and they're not having to compete so vigorously against other advertisers, they've probably got an opportunity to get in front of the right people effectively. So they would be the main things. I think actually now is the time to be really setting a strong strategy for your company around your content and around your messaging and getting it out, training your people up on how to make themselves look fabulous on the platform, and then also overlaying it with some really targeted and quality advertising campaigns. Yeah.
And LinkedIn are always introducing new features and different changes to the platform. Are there any new additions that have come about over the last couple of months that you would like to share with everyone that you think people should be utilising?
Sure. So the newest feature that's come on in the last 3 weeks is LinkedIn Stories, which isn't dissimilar in its look and feel of, say, Instagram Stories. It's probably, in my opinion, early days. It's probably still a little bit clunky, to be honest, but I think, again, it's an opportunity. So it's only on the mobile app, but what I think would be a really cool thing for businesses to do is to incorporate it into maybe their culture piece, and because you could be sharing stories around your talent, around events, around the human aspect of the business, because it's got that opportunity to make it a bit more fun and light and things like that. So I think that that's something that should be experimented with, and it hasn't been done. And you can actually now do it from a company page as well as from individuals. And I'm not seeing a lot of that at all. I'm seeing a lot of LinkedIn experts do it, but we don't want to hear from LinkedIn experts. We want to hear from brands, and we want to hear from thought leaders and industry leaders. So that's what I'd like to see more of, people being quite creative and using the LinkedIn Stories. And I think that's another point that probably should be touched on. One of the evolutions of LinkedIn that I'm seeing is it is becoming more creative. You know, it is becoming more human and more touchy-feely, which is actually great because it's not so corporatized as it was when it was all set up. So again, if you can play into that and think about, okay, what could we do for LinkedIn Stories strategy, and how could we incorporate that into our, say, talent strategy or our growth strategy, I think that would be clever. The other feature that's come on is this pronunciation feature on the profile, which, you know, for Lucy Bingle isn't, you know, probably highly necessary because that's quite easy to say. But, you know, I know that there are so many names out there that are really complex, and it gives the member an opportunity to pronounce their name correctly, which is great for them, but it's actually really nice for others, because often you have to do that really awkward moment and say, would you mind just telling me how to say your name? Where at least if you've got the profile in front of you and you've heard it before you've picked up the phone or had that coffee meeting, it just makes life that little bit easier. So I thought that was quite a neat feature, actually.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic too. And like you said, definitely help to avoid some of those awkward conversations.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that we'll actually move on now to questions from the audience. So I'm just going to pull up now to see what questions we have. The first one is from Robin, and she has asked you, Lucy, are there any absolutely no-go areas for LinkedIn posts?
Yeah, so again, you know, this is my personal opinion. This is not an opportunity to be political, you know. So if I always say to people, if you have that gut instinct moment where you hesitate about whether this is an appropriate post that you're about to publish, that tells me it is not. So therefore, trust your gut and do not actually post it. And the reason I'm quite passionate about that is because you don't need to be using LinkedIn as this platform to being political or being super controversial. And just remember that this is your personal reputation that you are actually managing. And it's really, really important that you look after and are respectful to your own professional brand. And so I'd be really mindful of stuff like that.
Yeah, I think referring to the L'Oreal case study again as well, and I think a lot of organisations do this, and it's a really great idea, is to have a social media policy in place that's clearly communicated to all of the team members and part of the induction process. So everyone understands and knows what is or isn't acceptable when it comes to talking about the company on social media platforms.
Yeah, completely. I agree. And I think that's, again, why it's so important to educate your people around your social strategy and your social policy, but also around your LinkedIn strategy. You know, what you expect them, you know, when they are onboarded, you would like them to update their profile pages, you'd like them to connect with their peers, you'd like them to engage with the company page posts, you'd like them to engage with their leaders' posts. Giving them guidelines, it works in everyone's favour. It works in the individual's favour, but it works in the company's favour as well.
So Dylan has asked us, is it better to publish thought leadership on LinkedIn as long posts or as a lead into a blog post on your own website? And how long is the perfect LinkedIn post? Two good questions.
Okay, so what I say to clients is to, when, as part of their content strategy and they're generating posts, or if they are generating posts, the first thing that we recommend is that those posts are published via the website. So at the end of the day, your website is your most important channel. It's your IP, you own it, therefore look after it and make sure that's the first port of call. You would publish it there. We would then recommend that via your company page, you would create a post that hyperlinks back to the blog page on the website. But we would then do a third step, which is that about a week later, we would get the author of that post to then publish it as a LinkedIn article via their profile page. As an individual, you sometimes feel like you're double dipping a lot, but you've got to remember that the feed changes so fast that it doesn't work like that. So just trust me on it. So that would be our process. In terms of, on that LinkedIn article, when you publish as an article, we actually tend to publish it in its entirety, but we include hyperlinks throughout the body of it to different areas on the website. And we have a very standard call to action at the end, which will say something like follow our company page here, or find out, read more blogs here, which would drive traffic to the website. And then in turn, what was the other question around the post length?
How long is the perfect LinkedIn post?
What I'm seeing a trend with now, and going back to that dwell algorithm, is, you know, on a post doing 3 or 4 short paragraphs. I don't want to see War and Peace, you know, because people don't want to see that either. But maybe, you know, 2 to 4 paragraphs that are meaningful, interesting and engaging, that would then, they have the opportunity to click into an article that's attached. Does that answer the question?
Yes, definitely. And I think just when you were talking as well about sort of where and how to publish different stories, it is a really important point to remember that just because something's been posted on your company page, or maybe it's been posted in an industry publication and they've put something on LinkedIn, doesn't mean you shouldn't also then post about that too, because it is going to be an opportunity to reach more people and a different audience. And if there is a bit of crossover, that's okay as well, because then it's just that frequency of message.
Absolutely.
Okay, another great question here. Is there a best time of day to post on LinkedIn? I notice my posts on weekends don't get the engagement of a similar post on a weekday.
People's theory on this change all the time. And I think especially now the world that we live in, our new norm, there probably isn't a best time because everyone is online all the time and everyone is working from home or doing a hybrid model, and you know, we're just so connected. Like, you know, it's really hard to, there's no peaks like there used to be. So I still probably err on the side that working days, working hours do favour you slightly, but there is a school of thought that C-suite professionals tend to be early morning and late evenings. But again, that was also because of commutes and going into the city. All that's out the window. So I'm not being very helpful on this question, I know, because I really don't think it's a hard and fast rule. I just think that you just get your stuff out there. You know, I would actually flip it on its head and say, what works for you best and what will ensure that you actually get content out and that you actually find time to say something.
And is it true, Lucy, that you are given a bit of a sort of 24-hour cycle with your post as well? So that it is just not so much just about the exact moment in time that you've posted, but what happens over that next 24-hour period and how you're interacting, responding
to comments. Completely. I put a post up yesterday and sure, there was a real wave in the first few hours. Then it was dull. And then this morning it's peaked again. So I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, I just don't think there's a hard and fast rule on it.
Can I ask as well, and this might just be debunking a myth, but I've read previously that Thursdays are the best day to post. Is that an old wives' tale? Is there any truth to that? Is there any evidence of particular days that are better than others? Not at all.
No.
Good to know. So don't hold back till Thursday, any day. No. Okay, our next question. When it comes to company profiles and the 8-week analytical reporting that you suggested, what would you say a good engagement rate is? Okay,
so the average engagement rate for a LinkedIn post on a company page is 0.054%. Okay. We, though, when we work with clients, we always aim for a 2 to 5% engagement rate. So remembering that 0.054% is across 50 million company pages. So there are going to be, you know, so that's why it's so low. Yeah. So we always aim for that 2 to 5%. That's sort of our sweet spot. And if we can get in that range or in the higher end of that, we're really delighted.
And is it high? Does it tend to be higher for individuals and personal profiles?
Yes. Yeah. But again, that's because you've got to remember individual networks are generally easier to grow and larger than company page networks, which are harder to grow because, you know, LinkedIn's the only social platform where you can't buy following. So it's an organic growth and therefore it's a long game. And I mean, I should have mentioned that earlier. I mean, don't get disheartened by your strategy. It really is a long game and there's no quick fix. It's about, and it's multi-pronged. It's about your people, it's about your brand, it's about your content. So you've got to get everything humming nicely. And then you just got to get some consistency on it and some time. And then you'll start to see results. So we say to clients, I will not promise anything before a 6-month mark because I know it takes that long to sort of get it going.
Good momentum. Yeah. So the next question, since COVID hit, I'm getting inundated with what looks like pre-written, automatically sent sales blurbs from new connections. Are you in favour of this marketing approach?
No, I'm not in favour of it. Yes, so for me, a bad practice would be that somebody reaches out to me and then instantly I get hit up with a sales pitch. Okay, I find that a massive turn off and chances are I won't respond. people are seeing a lot of automated processes as well because they're being outsourced, you know, to others, and it's being an automatic sort of sales strategy that's being put into play. So no, I mean, what we suggest to individuals is that they would do their connection strategy, so build out their networks and send out personalized connection requests. They would then 7 to 10 days later send a long form message, but it's not a sales pitch, it's more informative, just saying thanks for taking the time to connect. I thought I'd take a moment to educate you on what our business does. If you ever need any help, please feel free to contact us. But you're not asking them for anything. But what that does is Joe Blogs, who you've sent the personalised short form message to, has received that. He's then 10 days later received a long form message, which he may choose to ignore, and that's absolutely fine. But it does mean that then you're starting to market on the platform, sharing content, insights, articles, etc. That by the time Joe Blogs realises that he actually needs a new supplier, you're the first that's going to be coming up in his mind. And that's exactly the spot you want to be sitting in.
The next question is from Georgia. She said, some of our clients occasionally ask if they should delete old posts that have not performed well or leave them in place and move on. Do you have a position on that?
I've never been asked that, and I've never done that. No, I don't. I don't think there'd be any sort of judgment either way having those posts. So no, I would just keep moving.
Christy, I really love this question for Christy. She's asked, do you have any advice, Lucy, for someone who's not a skilled copywriter, very much a numbers person? How can they overcome their fear of posting?
Yeah, so, well, Christy needs to remember that she's got to back herself, because whatever she's going to post, she probably knows better than anybody. So again, I think it's really important to proofread what you write, or ask one of your colleagues to read your post and just do a litmus test on it and make sure that it sounds okay. If you were doing more long form content and you're actually thinking of a content strategy, I would at that point recommend that you know your content best, do a brain dump and then outsource it to a copywriter and get them to finesse it and flesh it out into something more consumable.
Sarah has asked, and I love this question too, what type of posts do people just hate?
What I don't like. What did you say?
The theme that you see here.
No, and I'm terrified because I don't know who's on the webinar, but I don't like being a lot of the real estate content that comes through, like selling stuff. I'm not mad on, and I'm more talking about resident. There's been some poor practice around sort of trying to sell me a lot of houses, which just is a bit odd. But look, memes, I think things that just seem poor quality, and just unnecessary. And I can see that they're just doing it to sort of get a presence on the platform. That doesn't really interest me that much. And I wouldn't say that that's a great strategy.
I would say as well, just from what I observe on LinkedIn too, that it's posts that are just a blatant self-promotion. Because what you need to remember is why people are on LinkedIn. It's to get inspiration, valuable information, advice. So how can you find that right balance between demonstrating your capabilities and expertise, but delivering that in a way that's really valuable to the people that are reading it and that they're going to get something out of that information as well?
What I'm also, and I agree with you, and what I'm also seeing a lot of, which and this is personal, I mean, people might actually really love it, is I seem to get so many posts of people running or driving a car and talking to me, and I find it really distracting. Like where I'll be, and they're doing a big sales pitch on how, and they're always life coaches, they're always running or they're in a car talking to me, and I find that really distracting. Doesn't work for me at all.
The next question is around premium LinkedIn. So when you're on premium LinkedIn, you can see who views your profile. Is it good or bad form to connect with that person and send a message along the lines of, well, I noticed that you viewed my profile. Is there anything I can help you with?
So I think it's good to see you can on those premium, that person's absolutely right. And I think it's important to have a look at who's viewed your profile. I think the first thing I'd say there is, remember that LinkedIn at the end of the day is a business platform. You know, everyone's there ultimately with the same game. You know, we're all there to look for opportunity and find opportunity, and to work together. So I would, in that instance, I probably wouldn't say the line, I noticed that you've been looking at my, you know, profile page, and I have received those notifications as well. I would just more, though, have a look at who they were. If they were of interest and it made sense for you to reach out, again, send them that personalised connection request. Hi, John, I do X, Y, Z. We've worked within this industry for a long time. It makes sense for us to connect on the platform. And yes, John's already looked at your profile page, but I don't think you need to call them out and say, I've noticed that you've been looking at my profile.
Might be big brother-ish.
Yeah.
The next question, what is the scope for expressing political opinion on LinkedIn posts? Should one avoid it or just be selective? I guess this crosses over a little bit with what you talked about earlier in terms of...
Yeah, look, to me, I wouldn't do, that's not my style. I wouldn't do that. And I wouldn't encourage others to do that.
All right, well, I think that brings us to the end of all of the questions from our audience, unless there's any final ones that come through in the next couple of minutes. So I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you so much to you, Lucy, for your time and for sharing your wisdom with us. It's been really insightful. I hope everyone else listening has gotten as much out of this conversation as I have. Also, thank you to all of you for tuning in and spending your time with us this morning. If you would like some more information from Sefiani or Lucy Bingle or assistance in driving your thought leadership or LinkedIn strategy forward, please do get in contact with us. You can find us on LinkedIn, of course, or you can reach out through strategy@sefiani.com.au. But otherwise, thank you again, everyone, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lucy.
Thanks so much, Nicole. Bye.